News Radio KDKA.
I do want to get to a very important topic. Yesterday, more than a dozen high-profile Twitter accounts, including that of the Apple account, the Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, presidential candidate Joe Biden, Barack Obama, all hacked Wednesday and displayed tweets telling followers to send Bitcoin to specific addresses. Well, now that you're all teleworking, right? I know I am. I currently am as I speak to you. Many folks have set up home offices over the last 120 days. Are you more vulnerable? So let's go ahead and let's turn to a cybersecurity expert. Kevin Campbell is our guest on KDKA Radio. Kevin, if I could, pronounce the name of your company. I don't want to butcher that because you have certainly a large scale across the country, 25 offices headquartered in Boston.
Thanks, Dan. And the name of the company is Synity.
Synity. What is Synity? Tell me a little bit about it and what exactly you do as it pertains to cyber security and things of that nature and data breaches.
Yeah, so Synity is the combination of the two words synergy and infinity. So you put those two words together and you get Synity. And it's about the synergy that you get when you take data with business and data with transactions. And if you put those two together, you get infinite possibilities. And so that's how we came up with our name. What we're all about is data, and whether, it's how you secure your data. It's how you decide what's the most important data, what's the way you can govern your data, and how you look at it from all different aspects. So we're data experts, and it's certainly a hot topic right now is the point of personal data security, but company data security is also a huge topic.
And topical that we have you on, and I appreciate you joining us to share your expertise. So certainly the credentials here, you've established that. Thank you so much for doing so, Kevin. So I guess in a vacuum, when you hear Facebook has a data breach or any other major company, especially as it pertains to client information, but in yesterday's instance, this was a Twitter account. This was the mass medium, if you think about it, with millions of followers. It is the equivalent, essentially, of some nefarious character grabbing my microphone and blasting out a nefarious message on 50,000 watts to however many states and half of Canada, which we reach. So there really is no difference, even though it would sound far more severe if somebody did what I just described, grab my microphone and do that. There's really no difference at day's end, I guess my point is, Kevin.
No, that's right. The difference is you have physical security, right, that helps stop you. In today's world of cyber and everything being interconnected, the downside of everything being connected is the bad guys can, get at you and try to take over your accounts. So, and I guess, as you mentioned earlier, you're working from home, right? Everybody's working from home right now, which means we've got to adapt some of our practices, and we've got to be more alert than possible. And unfortunately, the bad guys are working twice as hard at their homes trying to penetrate all of these accounts.
So
but
for
it
a
comes
big
down to, Dan, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, no, finish your statement because it's probably far more important than what my question was going to be.
What I was going to say is, there's fundamentals that of good practice that we have, whether it's your personal data security or it's company data securities. And there are things like you'll be surprised that at the end of most breaches is the fact that somebody hacked into a password, right? And, it went from the simple days that we guessed passwords, right, because people have, their kids' names or, the same thing as their user ID, and we all kind of learned not to do that. And you'll notice most companies require more sophistication. But at the end of the day, having a complex password, having different passwords for all of your accounts, changing them frequently, and using something we call two-factor identification, which means when you sign into an account, it sends a note to a number to your mobile phone, and you have to type that number in. If you think about that, that's a way, because it's using not only your password, but a second authentication way. It's a strong way for you to be able to make sure that it's actually you and not anybody else using your account.
A pain in the butt, I can attest to that, just to get into your email, but it's something that, unfortunately, we have to deal with, and it's the world that we live in. Kevin Campbell is our guest. He is a cybersecurity expert. So in a vacuum, and I understand this is a complex answer, and what happened to Twitter yesterday is a complex deal, but what happened in a vacuum?
So all the details are still emerging. So, we can all speculate. My guess somewhere in there is, believe it or not, will be a password that somebody either didn't change or somebody stole or somebody clicked on a link, right? You'll get these things, buy this, buy that, click on my photo, all these things. Some employee did that, and that exposed the credentials to somebody else. And there's all kinds of complex schemes of how believe me, they're patient. They are willing to put code in your computer that sits there for a long time and then wait for it to be activated. How do you stop it, right? Again, and I'm sure Twitter will review all their policies and strengthen their policies and look at it internally. But, they will get full help from a lot of people to help them look at that and look at what they need to do better. But I think most people's reaction to that is, why did it happen? But now I'm scared because I'm a person on Twitter, right? And so, just because they got hacked doesn't mean you can get hacked. But it means it's a good lesson for all of us to say, if somebody is as sophisticated as them and employing as many resources as they do that we as individuals and we as companies have to be very, very cautious, right? Especially with accounts that are handled by administrators and so on. You need to change those passwords frequently. You need to do what you described it adequately, and why a lot of people don't opt for it, two-factor authentication. But if you got hacked, right, the first thing you'd do is ignore every email that comes from Twitter, because it's probably, you don't know whether it's good or not, right? And then change your own passwords if you did click on something.
Kevin Campbell, our guest, a cybersecurity expert. As it pertains to Facebook, I guess same deal. There's really no difference between, I guess, anything like these two companies. I'm just speaking right now of social media entities, but for online banking, for checking your investment statements, anything along those, however you make your car payment, all of this certainly applies. How you pay your utility bills, right?
Yeah, all of that applies. And it's a challenge for all of us, and none of us like to do it. But you should have different passwords for each one of them and different ways to do the second verification and use that option. And then if you suspect that you've got hacked, you even suspect it. Most of us, human nature, we don't like to admit we made a mistake. We don't like to say, ooh, I did something. I clicked on that link and now that doesn't look good, right? First of all, anytime you get a link, hover over the email address and make sure that what it says is the email address is really the email address. A lot of times you'll see it says it's from Microsoft or it's from Facebook, and it's from somebody that looks official. It might even copy the email of something official you got one time perfectly. But if you hover over the email, you'll find that there's another email underneath it. That's the person your email is getting redirected to. What they usually want to do is get in and steal all your addresses and mail all your email, all your friends or your contacts, something from them, and then go try to hack into all of their accounts. So if you suspect that happens, and if you ever click on that link mistakenly, write to Facebook, write to Twitter, write to whoever and say, I got this, because they can usually then trap it and change it. Go change your passwords quickly. If it has anything to do with banking information, make sure that you check the they check that banking information, contact the bank and alert them, because they have extensive fraud monitoring. But if you alert them that you suspect something, they will help you go through the process of changing stuff. And last thing, we don't sell identity protection insurance, but for all of us personally and for companies, everybody today should have identity protection insurance, and everybody should have identity protection techniques and services that can help them in those kind of cases. So, Dan, that was a little long-winded, but I wanted to get in all that information that's important.
Kevin Campbell is our guest, and it's very good information as we continue our conversation with this cybersecurity expert who joins us, the CEO of Synity, a data management company, over 900 data specialists and 25 offices around the globe, headquartered in the greater Boston area. Our guest here on KDKA Radio in Pittsburgh. You mentioned different passwords for every single website. Our brains are already overloaded, Kevin. While we would probably ideally like to do that, how do we do that? Or are there tools that we can use to assist us in that process, considering password health is of utmost importance at this point in time?
Great point, Dan. And yes, there are password vaults that companies that will store your passwords for you and randomly generate those for you and keep track of it. So instead of you remembering every one of your passwords, you just access this third-party service. That third-party service remembers your passwords that they've randomly generated for you and gets you into those passwords. So
explain to me how those work, Kevin, because that's interesting. That's the first time. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think that's an important.
Nope.
That's an important tool that a lot of people don't know about how that actually works. I certainly don't. So they actually will create and maintain passwords for you to the point where you don't know those passwords, or do they just store them as if it's a P.O. box or something along those lines?
You have two options, right? There are some services that will remember your different passwords that you generate and then, return those when you try to sign in. Basically, they facilitate you remembering it and then signing back in for you. They know that it's this email and this password. Other ones are secure in that they randomly generate every time a different password for you and change that password in the account for every new session you have with it. There's pros and cons to both of them, but there's a lot of good services out there that do that. And so for small businesses, there's sophisticated services from Microsoft, from all the other online software players, Apple and so on. For personal, there's many out there for password vaults that will work for you. And that helps you, because otherwise, like you said, our heads are exploding with all the data we try to keep in there.
I mean, do you endorse a particular brand? Is one better than the other? Highly rated? More? I mean, tell me about the ones where people would even go, or how they would start to look at a password vault if they're so interested.
There's so many out there that are good. Right, and it's changing all the time. That's not something that we spend a ton of time keeping track of, because there's good. Obviously for businesses, so many people use either Microsoft or Google or the Apple products. That those three are all very reliable.
Understood.
But there's also ones on the commercial side that if you just go look at Consumer Reports, they'll give you a very strong list, and they keep it up to date. It's the kind of thing that changes fast.
Gotcha.
In the fact that more people are adding on, especially now with everybody working from home.
Yeah, and are people more susceptible working at home? And what are, quickly, Kevin, because we're sort of up against it a little bit, what are some of the things people that are doing the telework that they need to be most cognizant of?
So most companies, the work from home hit fast. And people like our company had a lot of people working from home, so it was kind of a slow adoption. Other companies, it was a fast adoption, and they've had to catch up. Most of those have very sophisticated firewalls and other techniques to basically filter out threats and people trying to get in. So they have those things in place in the businesses. However, they are all still going to come back and rely on the individual person doing the things that they need to, right? So that individual person, right, is got to be able to change their passwords, change them frequently, right, and use complex ones, and either use password vault or some other technique to be able to do it. So and the problem is we're on more, and we're tired of being on, and sometimes our habits fall down. So what we got to all do is like what happens when you go to the dentist, right? What's the dentist tell you? All the same things the dentist told you when you were a little kid, right?
That's true.
It's the fundamentals, it's the basics that you got to keep working on. And so that's what people need to continue to remember doing and make it into their daily routine.
It's a great point. They're working twice as hard as we are, the nefarious characters, and just because there's a pandemic that shuts a lot of stuff down, their business is booming in many respects, and we have to be vigilant in cracking their code, if you will, as we try to combat it. Kevin, I wish we had more time. Gosh, there's so much good stuff. We appreciate your expertise. We're all better for it. We're going to have you back on again, hopefully not to talk about another issue like we had yesterday with Twitter, but very enlightening stuff. I could talk to you for another couple of hours. So open invitation here to have you on the air if you would so warmly accept it.
I would love to, Dan, and thanks for having me on, and I look forward to connecting again. And everybody out there, please stay safe. And go change your passwords tonight just to help yourself stay safe.
Yeah, don't let your cyber guard down. That's from cybersecurity expert Kevin Campbell here on KDKA Radio.